Good afternoon. I was initially just going to read a paragraph from this essay, The Coming Revolution by Padraig Pearse, but I decided it's worthy enough to be and interesting enough to be read in total, right? So I'll begin. I've come to the conclusion that the Gaelic League, as the Gaelic League is a spent force, and I'm glad of it. I do not mean that no work remains for the Gaelic League, or that the Gaelic League is no longer equal to work. I mean that the vital work to be done in the new Ireland will be done not so much by the Gaelic League itself, as by men and movements that have sprung from the Gaelic League, or have received from the Gaelic League a new baptism and a new life of grace. The Gaelic League was no reed shaken by the wind, no mere voice crying out. It was a prophet, and more than a prophet, but it was not the Messiah. I do not know if the Messiah has yet come, and I am not sure that there will be any visible and personal Messiah in this redemption. The people itself will perhaps be its own Messiah, the people labouring, scourged, crowned with thorns, agonizing and dying, to rise again immortal and impassible. For peoples are divine, and are the only things that can properly be spoken of under figures drawn from the divine epos. If we do not believe in the divinity of our people, we have had no business, or very little, all these years in the Gaelic League. In fact, if we had not believed in the divinity of our people, we should in all probability not have gone into the Gaelic League at all. We should have made our peace with the devil, and perhaps might have found him a very decent sort, for he liberally rewards with attorney generalships, bank balances, villa residences, and so forth, the great and the little who serve him well. Now, we did not turn our backs upon all these desirable things for the sake of Is and Taw. We did it for the sake of Ireland. In other words, we had, one and all of us, at least I had, and I hope that you all had, an ulterior motive in joining the Gaelic League. We never meant to be Gaelic Leaguers and nothing more than Gaelic Leaguers. We meant to do something for Ireland, each in his own way. Our Gaelic Ireland, or our Gaelic League time, was to be our tutelage. We had first to learn to know Ireland, to read the lineaments of our face, to understand the accents of our voice, to repossess ourselves, disinherited as we were, of our spirit and mind, re-enter into our mystical birthright. For this we went to the school of the Gaelic League. It was a good school, and we love its name and will champion its fame throughout all the days of our later fighting and striving, but we did not propose to remain schoolboys forever. I have often said, quoting I think Herbert Spencer, that education should be a preparation for complete living. And I say now that our Gaelic League education ought to have been a preparation for our complete living as Irish nationalists. In proportion, we have been faithful and diligent Gaelic Leaguers. Our work as Irish nationalists, by which term I mean people who accept the ideal of and work for the realisation of an Irish nation by whatever means, will be earnest and thorough, a valiant and worthy fighting, not the mere carrying out of a ritual. As to what your work as an Irish nationalist is to be, I cannot conjecture. I know what mine is to be, and I would have you know yours and buckle yourself to it. And it may be, nay it is, that yours and mine will lead us to a common meeting place, and that on a certain day we shall stand together, with many more beside us, ready for a greater adventure than any of us is yet to have had. A trial and a triumph to be endured and achieved in common. This is what I meant when I said that our work henceforth must be done less and less through the Gaelic League, and more through the groups and the individuals that have risen, or are arising, out of the Gaelic League. There will be in Ireland of the next years a multitudinous activity of freedom clubs, young Republican parties, labour organisations, socialist groups and whatnot, bewildering enterprises undertaken by sane persons and insane persons, by good men and bad men, many of them seemingly contradictory, some mutually destructive, yet all tending towards a common objective, and that objective, the Irish Revolution. For if there is one thing that has become plainer than another, it is that when the seven men met in O'Connell Street to found the Gaelic League, they were commencing, had there been a lean court there to make the epigram, not a revolt, but a revolution. The work of the Gaelic League, its appointed work, was that, and the work is done. To every generation its deed. The deed of the generation that has now reached middle life was the Gaelic League, the beginning of the Irish Revolution. Let our generation not shirk its deed, which is to accomplish the revolution. I believe that the national movement of which the Gaelic League has been the soul has reached the point which O'Connell's movement had reached at the close of the series of monster meetings. Indeed, I believe that our movement reached that point a few years ago, say at the conclusion of the fight for Essential Irish, and I said so at the time. The moment was ripe then for a new Young Ireland party with a forward policy, and we have lost much by our hesitation. I propose in all seriousness that we hesitate no longer, that we push on. I propose that we leave Conciliation Hall behind us and go into the Irish Confederation. Whenever Dr. Hyde, at a meeting at which I had a chance to speaking with him after, has produced his dove of peace, I have always been careful to produce my sword, and to tantalise him by saying that the Gaelic League has brought into Ireland not peace, but a sword. But this does not show any fundamental difference of outlook between my leader and me, for while he is thinking of peace between brother Irishmen, I am thinking of the sword point between banded Irishmen and the foreign force that occupies Ireland. And his peace is necessary to my war. It is evident that there can be no peace between the body politic and a foreign substance that has intruded itself into its system. Between them war only until the foreign substance is expelled or assimilated. Whether Home Rule means a loosening or a tightening of England's grip upon Ireland remains yet to be seen. But the coming of Home Rule, if come it does, will make no material difference in the nature of the work that lies before us. It will affect only the means we are to employ, our plan of campaign. There remains under Home Rule, as in its absence, the substantial task of achieving the Irish nation. I do not think it is going to be achieved without stress and trial, without suffering and bloodshed. At any rate, it is not going to be achieved without work. Our business here and now is to get ourselves into harness for such work as has to be done. I hold that before we can do any work, any men's work, we must first realise ourselves as men. Whatever comes to Ireland, she needs men. And we of this generation are not in any real sense men, for we suffer things that men do not suffer, and we seek to redress grievances by means which men do not employ. We have, for instance, allowed ourselves to be disarmed, and now that we have the chance of rearming, we are not seizing it. Professor Owen MacNeill pointed out last week that we have at this moment an opportunity of rectifying the capital error we made when we allowed ourselves to be disarmed. And such opportunities, he reminds us, do not always come back to nations. A thing that stands demonstrable is that nationhood is not achieved otherwise than in arms. In one or two instances there may have been no actual bloodshed, but the arms were there and the ability to use them. Ireland unarmed will attain just as much freedom as it is convenient for England to give her. Ireland armed will attain ultimately just as much freedom as she wants. These are matters which may not concern the Gaelic League as a body, but they concern every member of the Gaelic League and every man and woman of Ireland. I urged much of this 5 or 6 years ago in addresses to the Ard Crave, but the League was too busy with resolutions to think of revolution, and the only resolution that a member of the Gaelic League could not come to was the resolution to be a man. My fellow Leaguers had not, and have not, apprehended that the thing which cannot defend itself, even though it may wear trousers, is no man. I am glad then that the North has begun. I am glad that the Orangemen have armed, for it is a goodly thing to see arms in Irish hands. I would like to see the AOH armed. I would like to see the transport workers armed. I should like to see any and every body of Irish citizens armed. We must accustom ourselves to the thought of arms, to the sight of arms, to the use of arms. We may make mistakes in the beginning and shoot the wrong people, but bloodshed is a cleansing and sanctifying thing, and the nation which regards it as the final horror has lost its manhood. There are many things more horrible than bloodshed, and slavery is one of them.